Hey everybody, it's your boy Green Havoc, and today we have a gold-ranked Mercy player. So this was submitted by Shockmaster, and he feels like he could be getting a little more out of his Mercy play. So what are we going to be looking for? We are going to be looking for his positioning, his cooldown management, and of course his ultimate economy awareness. Now I don't expect this player to be tracking enemy ultimates, as you don't see that a lot at the high rank of play. So I'm not expecting to see that in kind of the mid to lower rank play. So the big thing that I'm hoping he is aware of is where his team is, how his team is preparing to use their ultimates to be in the right area to support said ultimates. I'm also expecting him to have a low amount of deaths as he is Mercy, so his positioning should be in a way that it is hard for him to be reached, and with Guardian Angel, he should be able to get out of most situations. Reses are a tricky one. That's a tricky one. Can't go too risky, can't play too safe. So we'll see how this player likes to pick those rhythms with his reses, and we'll see if there's anything we have to say about it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy this. This is ESHQ's Player Academy. And remember, heroes never die. All right, guys, let's get into this video. So we are looking at a gold Mercy, as we said in the opener. And, of course, I am joined again by Swordwalker, and he's going to be pretty talkative as we're talking about a Mercy. And he is our resident healer.
Oh, boy. Mercy play.
So, let's see here. We've got, looks like 2 6 stacks, probably the LFG, I assume. You're gold, but clearly, I mean, this is kind of an interesting SR range game where obviously we're in placement, so we're not going to get the raw numbers, but you said you were high gold. You're sitting on the
that would be
2400 range, so this should be a decent game. Let's see how it pans out.
Okay.
Okay, so we got 2 healers right off the bat. I definitely expect a little, like a decent team comp on the merit that you are playing a 6 stack. Interesting comp. I don't like the Lucio personally, just because what are you trying to accomplish with it?
If it was like Zarya Ryan, like another frontliner. See, with this comp, I would be assuming.
Like this combo? Check. This combo, check. What are these two trying to do? Are you rushing in with? Are you rushing the enemy with this? Like, who's playing where? And not to say you can't make this comp work, because ultimately you have the fundamentals. You have a tank. You have 2 tanks, 1 main, 1 off. You have 2 healers, 1 main, 1 off. But I would be asking how we want to play the objective, and I don't know if you're active in comms. I haven't heard you in comms yet, but
I'll be watching over them.
So if I were running this team comp and I saw this, I'd be thinking to myself, I'm going to be pocketing the Widow, and if I need to, I'll be jumping between the back line and front line. Hopefully the McCree plays with the front line. That would be my assumption with this team composition, and then kind of take it from there. That would be that's the way I would play this, at least, as the Mercy.
So it looks like Diva's going for a scout, which is fine.
Yep.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds. All systems operational.
You're talking in all chat. That's fine.
Hey, tilting the enemy team is a viable strategy. If you can manage to tilt the enemy team without doing anything reportable, I mean, that's a win in my book.
I like that you're
We're planning on holding, guys.
I like that you're... Okay, he's talking about where they want to hold.
He doesn't know. Look.
I like that your Lucio was scouting, but he didn't relay any of that information, so why bother scouting? Your Diva's forward, and
holy shit.
Your Mercy...
That's not a resable position. I would not try to res that.
I would have checked the team comp. I would have looked.
I threw a flash,
bit,
not
but
fair.
Yeah, that's all in all. I mean, sometimes you feel like you need to go for this res. That's not necessarily. If you can get that res, that's good. But it looks like you're gonna lose the fight anyway. So.
I want to replay.
Let's switch.
I would just be trying to run away at this point. Yeah, don't even.
Yeah,
you're gonna get staggered now.
You've got a little scatterbrain there. You make the decision. Go or stay, or because yeah, You
Yeah.
really staggered yourself hard there, and you led them nowhere. Like if you went into that back hallway, potentially you live long enough for your team to catch up and maybe get a pick and things like that. But right now, both your healers are down. Your tanks are going in one at a time. Your Reinhardt's not going to last long.
Yep. I would just maybe potentially
leave.
try to pocket the soldier and
We might
leave.
need to back out, though.
I would
We need
just
to back
leave.
He's
we
calling
have
for the back out to
Yeah.
the soldier, so that's smart.
Yep, that's good.
Lucio came in and got the boop. And that boop saved your
That was a
life.
waste.
Yeah,
Look at that.
good job. Good job, Lucio.
You have no reason to peek that corner unless you're just curious about what people are
We gotta get this
doing,
bash in,
because
though.
Yeah.
your Lucio's playing silly. Like, what is he trying to
He's
accomplish?
slow.
But
He's getting heals. Nice.
this is another area where you might want to. I like the Valkyrie. I think this was a good
Yep,
choice.
it's good.
You heard a blown ult on the enemy
Genji
team,
back to the left side.
and now you're gonna try to roll that into a victory. That was a good shatter on
We're getting down.
Reinhardt's point.
Genji's half.
You wanna
Focus
you should
Genji.
be-
Focus Genji. He's
you
low.
should be
Really low.
involved.
He's really low.
Because
Yeah.
especially when you're calling out that the Genji's
help.
low and you want him to be finished, you want to
Mercy
make that
behind
as
you,
easy as possible by damage
Sorry,
boosting
sorry.
your targets, or your allies.
It's fine to rapidly click between healing and boosting if you feel like you're not sure whether or not they're going to be taking massive amounts of damage in the incoming seconds.
And especially
Realistically,
because since you have 2 hit scan, and Diva's damage is also a
Their
hit
Ryan
scan,
should have Shatter if he didn't already
flicking
use
in
it.
between the two is going
I
to
think he
increase
used it
each
not too
shot
long ago.
when,
Okay.
when you are over.
But he might have. I mean,
so.
he gets it pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's not like a projectile where
He's
it's
really
like you have to be kind of on it for a little bit.
yep.
This is good sight line. Oh, what are you doing? You heard the Bastion. Don't peek out like that. You're lucky the Bastion didn't see you. I like the reposition.
Yep, this is good. This is a really good position to play. You know they can't really flank you from there.
He just.
Oh, that's a
You
big
avoid the
shatter.
shatter. Yeah. Playing on these stairs is fine. You could even walk up. Yep, that's good.
I don't know about this.
I think he was planning on going for the res, which is fine.
Go for that Diva. Okay.
Yeah.
You should have gone for that Diva while they were distracted. I think you could have said. I personally would have
want to
saved
play
this
defensively,
Valkyrie.
soldier.
I would have saved that Valkyrie personally.
Yeah. If you were gonna pop that Valkyrie, you needed to do something with it. and
Yeah.
You didn't really. So I understand the hesitation after popping the Valkyrie to actually go on res, because if you went in res there was a very high chance you would not get the res off, and you would probably die. So
So one of the things. Okay, I'm going to pause real quick. One of the things you definitely want to try to be doing with Mercy is Mercy's value. You have to imagine compared to the other healers, where like Ana, Moira spike up depending on a situation because of their kits being long ranged or high healing or the ability to switch between damage and whatnot, and then they fall back off. During times where they get LOS'd or there's barriers. Lucio can get high value if there's, speed that he can be taking advantage of, walls, line of sight, things like that. When you play as a group, if he's trying to heal one person by himself, he all of a sudden falls off again. The thing with Mercy is her value comes from playing consistent and being in the right position to do stuff all the time. So while you were up here and you're like walking this way to like, ooh, can I do something? Or walking this way, ooh, can I do something? You're not doing anything. Your value is 0. So you want to try to make those decisions a little quicker about, are you helping your Lucio stay alive? Are you, damage boosting your Reinhardt? You want to make those decisions just a touch quicker.
I can't.
We got a little too spread out. It was hard to heal everybody because I was a little bit all over the place.
And so he just called out that they were getting too spread out and it was hard to heal, which is true. It's not like you had an easy person to focus. However, you can make that call during the fight. Hey guys, rally on point, come back to point, let them know to come back, because your team has listened to you already in this game. So those are the kind of call-outs as Mercy you
Watch
want to
for
try
Zarya
to
ult.
do during the fight, not necessarily always after. He's calling out that they could have a Zarya ult. That's smart, especially because, they're telegraphing that ult so hard. They're way over ulting though, so it's fine. That's
Yep.
4 ults for that.
I hit
They
left
won the
click.
You
fight.
should get one more defense probably.
They won the fight
you know.
with just the graviton, and then the
Yeah.
blade was like overkill.
And then the Ana boosted
And
blade
the
was
Ana
like
boosted blade was super overkill, and then the shatter was super overkill.
yeah. So realistically, yeah, I feel like your team's getting too split up here potentially.
I like this.
Especially if you're
It's a good
playing
one.
Lucio. That's a good pick. That's a good one. Pick revive.
I wish I had the invincibility
Yep.
shield too.
Only one of you needs to be contesting the cart. You can play further back if you need to.
Mhm.
Using the cart as I don't know because the sight lines are also kind of rough.
Using the
but,
card as
yeah.
cover was perfect when they were walking. The enemy
do this,
team
we
was
got this.
walking forward, and the Bastion was trying to get line of sight. Once
Yep.
the Reinhardt comes back to the point, that's when you're gonna want to go back to try to have one person on cart. So right here, this is a panic ult. Watch the kill feed. Okay, we're here. The enemy Mercy's down. The enemy Reinhardt's down. That's 2 people down. You see
We can do this,
5
we got
people
this.
in front of you. You've got 5 people over here. 2, 3 people down. The whole team's gone except for maybe 1, and now you're coming out with your tactical visor and your Valkyrie, while the
half a
enemy
meter.
team still has 2 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Yep.
Both of those
No,
ults
that's
were
like a
wildly
foot?
unnecessary.
Yeah.
You gotta pay attention to the kill feed, especially as Mercy, because
Half.
you're coming back from spawn on a character who doesn't have a high mechanical requirement.
I had a bit of a panic ult there. I was making sure we could still hold. Get you top right.
He talks. He does say it was a panic ult, but you panicked based on the
Yes.
fact that you died in the previous fight with no knowledge into the current fight. As you were respawning, talk to your team.
job, man.
Your
Good
team
work.
is talking. Go, hey guys, what are we doing? Do I need to ult? Do I need to ult? Let them respond. And keep that communication going because you guys
Get you
are
top right on
talking.
truck.
That's a good call out
Very
on the
awkward.
Genji. Nice job. Keeping people
Yep.
aware. You're not going to go for that Reaper. He's way too far. That's on him right now.
I would be boosting Orisa or your
Just go back,
soldier
just
here.
go
I
back,
believe
go
you have
back.
a soldier.
There's a plan.
Yeah, that's if they're up there, that's
I
not
might
your,
have
that's not your
ult
job.
again
I like that you're staying back
before,
here.
Probably in the next like 30
Yep, this is good.
Shield ASAP.
Play far enough away from the Orisa so if someone actually dives you, you have a
left side,
shift
Brigadier
target
behind
to
us.
yourself.
Good call out on the Brigitte.
It's okay.
So I see.
Yep, that's good.
So you're traded 1-for-1 right now. Your damage dealer for their main healer. This is still a winning fight right now. So.
Yep. Should be damage boosting someone here. You allow us the Lucio ult too.
Good.
Luckily, yeah, it's good dodging the
Yep.
the shots there. That's good.
That Reinhardt should have gone for you. That's a little
Yeah.
silly.
I'd be looking for the reds right now.
Yeah, go for that. Go for that res. Go for the res.
Resing Ryan.
You should have gone for that way sooner.
Yeah,
Before
when it was
that
just
Zarya committed.
the Ryan. Yeah, because the second Ryan stops putting down a shield, Risa's just gonna blow him up. So if he tries to go back and
We
swing
can do
on
this.
you,
We got 30 seconds left.
30 seconds.
They're calling out that they want to at least hold to overtime.
yep, it's possible
I don't have
for
res
sure.
anymore.
It is ridiculous.
Yep, going on the Reaper. I maybe would have jumped all the way to high ground instead of stopping short where you're at right now, but this is fine too.
especially well, that one.
Oof, yeah.
You're lucky you didn't get punished there.
Yeah.
The enemy team had to get distracted.
This is a good ult.
I like this Valkyrie. This is a fine Valkyrie. However,
Playing this pillar's fine too.
definitely remember that the Orisa ult is out, and you can't damage boost combo with that. So right now you are
Yep.
all heals. So that's just
Yep.
something to keep in mind. Though it doesn't matter because you won the point. But that's just some of the kind of the management to remember. So as we're done with the first round here, let's go ahead and highlight a couple of things. Your positioning has for defense was good. You were very rarely in pickable positions. You played smart and around corners. Your jukes were, for the most part, fine. You could definitely be playing better, but your positioning was definitely good. Your Mercy mechanics need some work. They were fair.
Just damage boost more. Find a
Yeah.
target. Find the target on your team where it's like you're my pocket, right?
Yeah,
You're playing
as-
Mercy is like a pocket healer almost a lot of the time.
Mhm.
So
And as Mercy, you definitely want to know who has the greatest output, in a situation, and kind of feel the
Yep.
situation. Okay, we're just kind of spraying into the enemy team down a hallway. Well, Soldier has damage fall off, Orisa doesn't, so boost the Orisa. Just little things like that. As far as your comms go, I'm going to say fair as well, because you were calling certain things out very well. Like, you were good about calling flankers out. Talk to your team about your ults, though, because especially as Mercy, when you're taking a passive angle, you imagine that this is a building and there's a team fight happening somewhere on this side and you're holding the corner to have your beam come out and touch somebody. You don't see necessarily all the details, and the kill feed doesn't always tell you everything you need to know. So
it's okay to ask your team questions, essentially, I think is what we're getting at.
Exactly. Just go ahead and ask your team, hey guys, all right, so I've got Valk. Do we need Valk? Do we need Valk? And realistically, they might have a good idea of it. And again, the big thing, though, pay attention to that kill feed. Ask your teammate. Ask your teammates. But your other callouts were
They're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for like high gold. Like, they're really good.
Game sense. Oh, the other thing, you could be a little more assertive about telling people where
Like to
play.
group up.
Yeah. And especially as a Mercy, where you have a limited range, and you and again, Mercy's value heavily drops off the longer she's not in a fight. She doesn't have burst value. So you need to make sure you're staying alive. So you get to be a little extra assertive about, like, hey guys, come back to point for healing. I can't take that line of sight. I'm getting bullied, because they're gonna go, ooh, our Mercy can't defend herself. I guess I should come back to point, and they'll come back, and you can be a little more assertive as far as that goes. As far as your game sense, this was, in my opinion, your weakest aspect. So I'm going to give you a poor rating as far as your game sense goes for the defensive round. We'll take comms out of the equation for a second. Your decisions to ult were poor. Your comboing ults with existing ults or countering ults was poor. You would call something out and then kind of almost ignore your own call out. You called out the enemy Zarya having her ultimate and then stayed in a position where you could be ulted. Now, ultimately, they quad ulted in that fight, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But you were still caught in the first ult, and you called it out. So you knew it was going to happen and then did nothing to prevent it. So your game sense is a little lacking. You want to make sure that you're listening to your own call-outs. You're paying a little more attention to some of the sight lines that an enemy could have in the non-traditional sense. Like, your positioning in the mid-fight is fine. Your mid-fight positioning is ultimately why I gave you a good rating. But your ult fight is the one that I feel like you were a little lacking in, as if almost you were a little uncomfortable with the way everyone else's ults worked. So it's just something to keep in mind. Anything to add from a Mercy player?
No, I think for the most part, especially towards the end, you kind of found like a pillar that you knew you could play around, and that's good. Finding like a way to LOS and like juke the target and then valking past them. Valking past targets that actually have to aim at you is a very good way of dodging hit scan and that sort of thing. Make quicker decisions would be my main thing. About when you want to res. If you're going to pop the Valk, commit to popping the Valk. Or commit to like the res. Like I think it was point 2 where you pop Valk and then you're like, actually the Reinhardt doesn't look resable. Well, that's fine. Just make that decision before you pop the Valk, essentially.
Make that decision before you pop the Valk, and also make the decision, again, pay attention to that kill feed up here, that sometimes you just have to go and try to make that play. It's not the play you may want to make, but Mercy is a passive hero, but in moments like that, Mercy is a play maker.
Yep. I mean, all in all, I think it was incorrect to go for the res in the first place, because your team was already wiped, and even if you res the Reinhardt there, you would have still lost. You would have just ended up staggering him. So it's good that you didn't res him after you popped the Valk. Just think about that before popping the Valk, essentially.
Exactly.
And try to do that quickly. Try to comprehend that as quickly as possible. A lot of that comes from watching the kill feed and that sort of thing.
And just to the final point on that is, I also agree that the Reinhardt was definitely the risky play, and realistically, you probably would have lost that fight regardless. But not going for the res, but then staying in a position where you get picked off almost immediately afterwards was not the right decision. You could have flown up to the high ground, flown back to spawn, utilized the fact that while that's happening, you know, you can fly. The enemy doesn't have a Widowmaker, so fly up high, call out enemy positions. If they're regrouping, hey guys, it's going to be a staggered fight here. We have time to regroup and we can push it. So just make sure to take advantage of your ult if you're not going to go for the risky play.
Yep.
Let's see how this offensive round goes. Skipping forward a little bit.
That Genji is like in the back line, so I don't want to play Widow out of spawn really.
Okay, they're talking about the Genji causing some problems for the back line, not really wanting to play the Widowmaker for too long if it continues to be an issue, which I think is an okay call to make, though obviously it's going to be a little harder for the Genji to hit the back line super hard while you're on offense versus when you're on defense. Let's see how you guys play this.
Get the talking car.
Again, I'd probably be
have a
playing
Pharah.
with the Widow right now.
Yeah, especially since they have a Pharah and they told you they had a Pharah by spamming the door before it was open.
Playing on the McCree too is
They
probably
also
fine.
have a
I got
Widowmaker.
screwed. I'm not
That's resable.
Yeah, 100%.
You want to get rest?
Yep.
Because I can get you.
Go for it.
I'm
Go
gonna
for
get you
it.
back in for now. I'm gonna get you because we need you.
Yeah,
The Widow was debating whether or not they wanted to be rezzed.
yeah. In case you
I
wanted to
can get the
switch.
Pharah.
Okay, that's fine then.
I think the Widowmaker is like 100% necessary personally, because if they have a Widowmaker and a Pharah, you're gonna need someone to deal with him, and your
There's a pick.
Widowmaker just did.
Yep. Putting resources into a Widowmaker also will help her perform. Even if the enemy Widowmaker is better, just putting resources in her, like boosting her,
Go the right,
healing
guys,
her,
get up there,
making
get up
sure
there.
that
Go.
she has the advantage in that matchup goes a long way
I like
as far
that
as
you're
actually winning.
encouraging your tanks to play up and
Yep.
get a little more aggressive. I think that's the right
Good
call.
pick.
Nice damage boost there. That like
Yep, that was good.
And that's what we mean
Where's the
about
Widow?
flickering for the hit scans,
She's,
is
coming
they
from
only
the,
need very
like,
small
player spawn with
windows.
That long.
Especially
long
McCree, because his
wall.
shots are very
I don't know
consistent.
how to describe it, sorry.
So, and there's gaps in between.
So right now
clicking
you're
the
just
heal.
holding heal on full health targets. So
Yep.
make sure you're damage boosting a little extra, because sometimes just that extra damage boost is all your team needs to deter an enemy from feeling comfortable to engage. So
Yep. That being said, your positioning here is pretty good. This whole entire fight, you had really good
Soldier down.
positioning.
All right.
is a good first point ultimately. You could be helping your DPS with damage boosting a little more.
I have
but,
Valkyrie.
mean,
When I
your
pop it, we should go
healing
mad
was
aggro.
Definitely good, and your
I'll wait till we get a little bit
positioning
closer to him, though.
Also very solid.
Widow down.
Ooh,
I'd be
okay.
playing with the Widow here. You don't need to be
Yeah.
on point.
Exactly.
D.Va
What
Again.
There's always, if you're not doing anything, boost.
Oh, they're
There's
not
always
good.
something you
Bridget
can be
coming
doing
behind,
as
Bridget.
Mercy, generally
Or, sorry,
speaking,
she-
unless nobody on your
Yeah.
team is doing anything.
And again, Mercy is a midline
Mercy down.
hero, so like you need to be doing something, otherwise your value falls off.
Roadhog right
much
side.
harder than like an Ana does, because an Ana can clutch a fight with her abilities.
Soldier down.
Whereas you need to constantly be doing something to maintain value. So,
Yeah.
okay, good. I'm glad you flew left. Perfect. This is a great sight line, because you knew the enemy Widow was coming up top right, and you've avoided
Oh,
all
Roadhog.
sight lines
Oh,
for her to
okay.
potentially get picked. So I like that.
Not
Yep.
bad, not bad.
Note that your Widow was somewhere behind you. Roadhog's on the top. I like that.
Resing Widow.
Going for the res is good.
Thank you.
Right click more in that fight.
Soldiers.
Even in Velk, a lot of people
Nice.
could have been benefiting from that.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
that's
Roadhog.
okay. Other than that, I mean, that res is good. The Valk, I think, is good. The reposition's good.
Let's see
Just
where they're
damage
coming
boost
from.
more. Just, a little bit
We're
more
gonna
right
come up
clicking
top.
there.
I can
It
see
goes a
coming.
long ways.
I didn't think they're gonna
Yep.
get into us.
because one of the other things
Are they?
one of the other things to think about, especially in those brawl situations where you are in the advantageous position, is if you are healing, right? So you are so this is your Reinhardt and he's swinging this way, right? If you're healing your Reinhardt, you're increasing his health pool, sure, but the larger his health pool is, the more ult charge the enemy team is going to get from hitting him, right? The longer the fight goes. If you are damage boosting him, he's going to do more damage, kill these targets quicker. He's going to gain his ult charge, but they're going to gain less because they're alive a shorter amount of time. So understanding the balance between keep them above the one-shot range, keep them away from being able to be one-shot by like the Roadhog who they were fighting in there, but not just healing them to heal them is an important balance for Mercy.
The way I like to think about it is, like, how much threat does the target you're healing or damage boosting taking? If there's like a Bastion right in front of him, yeah, you're probably gonna need to left click him even if he's at, heal him even if he's at full HP. But if it's just like a Reinhardt v Reinhardt, that target's not gonna die very quick. Neither one of those targets are gonna die very quick. So it's very easy to just put a little bit of damage boost in there while maybe healing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And this is ultimately the hardest part about Mercy's kit is understanding the wins, because even like a Bastion, if your team is committing to jumping on the Bastion's position and you're using your damage boost, it might be the right call to just let a person die but damage boost to achieve the goal and then go and res that person. So there's definitely things that you need to feel out as, like, playing as Mercy isn't all about just making sure no one ever dies. That's the way Moira has to play. That's the way Ana has to play. They don't have a way to pick someone back up. You can strategically let a person fall if it wins you the fight because you know you're going to be able to res them afterwards. Yep. So things like that are definitely, you want to remember, res isn't just to erase a mistake. It can be used as a proactive tool. Hey guys, we're going to go in, we're going to smash into them. Our Diva's going to go first, soak up as much of the damage possible to allow us to take the ground to do our jobs. Oh no, the Diva's mech blew up and the mini Diva was killed. But as we press forward, because we were allotted that space, now you res, now it's back to a 6v6 and you roll the rest of the fight. So understanding how to use Mercy's res proactively as a in case and not just a when it does is important.
Yep. Good example of that is back when you could right click the Dragon Strike. Right clicking the Dragon Strike inside of Zen ulting
they got
Zarya ult was way more important than anything else, because you would instantly kill everybody inside of that now.
Oh shit,
instead of maybe healing your tanks who are dying. Just making sure you get that team wipe was way more important. And just like, thought you need to be thinking about stuff like that essentially.
Got it.
Look, I'll see the big deal here. Kill again.
Okay, so you guys have a lot of time to push it and potentially win this game. And you've got the ults to do it potentially in this fight. So let's see how you guys play this out. You're not too close.
Brigitte behind us.
So, well, now, it was a good call out that you called out that the Brigitte was behind you, but these are like the subtle things that you want to make sure you're tracking. Brigitte comes, look at the yellow beam. That's two people.
Yep.
Both of their supports right now are behind you. So if you called that out, you could make one of two calls. Everybody collapse back, take out both of their supports, or everyone full forward and fight the 6v4 that's, towards the objective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because right now they're split. You should have an advantageous fight here as the attackers.
So again, like, your Reinhardt's at full.
There's
and
a Mercy behind
healing.
us too.
Yep.
She just went to the payload.
All right, you've got shields. All right, good. Your damage boosting.
Yeah.
Nice, we got two. Good job.
It's good.
Brigitte's still behind.
Brigitte behind us.
Preemptively move. That if that Brigitte was comfortable with her kit, you would be gone right now.
Yep. If she whiplashed you, you'd be 100% dead.
Mm-hmm.
America.
Okay. They're getting a little over confident.
Good pick,
right now.
Widow.
That might.
Right click them. Okay. Your supercharger's down. It's dead. So just right click.
I Valkyrie, so keep fighting. Bastion's in the back right corner.
Right click.
You're, like, see this? All right, now heal.
Yeah.
Now heal.
Now heal. Yeah.
That's too late.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when everyone writes off the enemy team.
Yeah.
That for the record, that's one of those areas where you needed to keep the comms clear. Your team got way too comfortable and wrote the enemy team off as if they had already won. Game's not over till you win. And I'm going to go ahead and actually go back real quick, because this was the perfect example right when you first Valkyrie, where in this specific area right now, the enemy main healer is down. If you were damage boosting, let's watch the health. Let's watch the health bars. This Reinhardt would not live if you were damage boosting.
Yeah, you're damage boosting 3 people there.
They've taken
2 of which are main tanks.
They've taken this much damage, and you could say, "Oh, but what about the Bastion?" You see the Bastion. Look at his sight. It's a terrible sight line. He has nothing.
Yep.
Their Brigitte's over here. Their Roadhogs there. They have no damage on this side of the map. And their Bastion has terrible sightlines. If you were to damage boost right now and guarantee this Reinhardt doesn't make it, let's continue.
I Valkyrie, so keep fighting.
Yep. It's okay to
So,
target call in
your-
this situation
your,
too.
Your
Get the
Reinhardt
best,
does make the mistake of
Bastion's in
charging
the
for some reason.
back right
I
corner.
don't know
Yeah.
what he was going for, because this happens. But you needed to call out that Ryan as a target, and you needed to damage boost him, because now, I mean, look where they got stunned. Now this Bastion sight line is good.
Yep.
So, just little stuff like that to keep in mind. And again, so this res, pay attention to the kill feed. You're staggering yourself, you're staggering that Orisa, and because you're healing, this is another instance. Don't heal. What are you doing? You're just giving them ult charge. If you would have just damage boost, you both would have died quicker, your Orisa would have gotten more ult charge, and they would have got less ult charge, and you would have reset quicker. So, understanding how the ult economy works.
Accidentally staggered you there, Arissa, sorry.
He is apologizing for staggering the Orisa.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad you're
Yeah,
aware.
as I mean, if yeah, being aware of your mistakes is a good step forward.
Keep that shield up, I'm resing.
Resing your Lucio is fine. You have a lot of cover.
He's behind,
The rest of your team.
Yeah, this fight's over. You should just call for backup.
Yep.
He only killed me.
The enemy team's not pushing in, luckily.
Yeah, if I were the the enemy team does have a Bastion. So,
Yeah, that's true. They can really push in.
and they're playing up against a Widowmaker, so I think it's the right call to play a little extra defensive, because I mean you just
No, you're
got
right.
your
Yeah.
2 picks just waited out. I like this. This is smart. Good.
Yep.
No, you ruined it.
Reposition.
Brigida coming back left, back left.
He'll be right clicking. That's good.
Right. Switch to right click now. Switch to right click now.
Bastion exposed. Nice.
Playing on the
Nice.
Mercury
Keep
here
going,
is
keep
good.
going, keep
This
going.
is where you want to be.
Damage boost him. Okay. Well, now heal him.
Oh,
Damage
yeah,
boost.
yeah. When the brigade was on him,
Now
quite
you're all
stay.
heals. Now you're all heals.
Yep.
Okay, that's you guys are winning. You
Focus
guys are
Roadhog.
winning this fight.
Yep, playing on the Mercury's fine.
What a
Staying on the Mercury.
Remember that you can't damage boost over the damage boost.
Get the Mercy, don't let it rest.
Make sure
Yep.
you damage boost those charge. Charge does so much extra damage when it's damage boosted. Okay, you guys
Well
Yep.
done.
won.
work, guys.
You could have potentially won in the fight before if you guys were a little more organized. So let's go ahead and go through your total positional, mechanical, comms, and game sense. So all in all, as far as your positioning goes, I am going to give you a good plus. And what I mean by that is you're not quite good enough that I want to say great positioning, but your positioning was definitely a strong point in how you played. But it was a one-dimensional playstyle, at least for what we saw in this video. You had very good defensive, and I don't mean on the defensive round, but in general, very good passive, out of the line of sight, low, like not putting yourself as a target. We didn't see you play very aggressively as far as getting into the thick of things. So as far as your aggressive placement, we can't make too many comments on that, and that's why I'm not going to say great. I'm going to say good. As far as your Mercy mechanics, I'm going to say fair. I'm going to keep, I think fair is ultimately where it's going to stay. We saw a lot of times where you should have been damage boosting when you were healing. Your switch back to healing was always very quick, but your switch then off of healing back to damage boost was always a little limited. You seemed pretty comfortable with your GAs, but it looked like you still had to kind of think about what you wanted to do with your GAs. And if you're, as you progress up and up the ranks, the DPS like Genji and Tracer are going to just get better and better at one clipping. So you got to make sure that you kind of know already, if someone dives me, who am I going to? If someone dives me, who am I going to? Your comms were good for what you called out. Ultimately, but you want to try to broaden that horizon to making sure that when you call something out, you're listening to it, and don't be afraid to be a little assertive with your team. And I'm just going to stick with it. I'm going to say poor for your game sense. I feel like you ult reactively and not like based on like a decision. You clearly need to be paying attention to the kill feed more, as I said earlier in the video. And I feel like there is almost a little bit of a confusion, and I think it said this at the halfway point as well, a little bit of a confusion about the way that certain DPS interact with the environment. So just being a little more comfortable with that as far as your game sense goes, and I think that will go a long way. Swordhawk?
Yeah, I think you covered most of the bases. The big things I would focus on improving is just, watching the kill feed, like you said, is a huge part of that. Target calling when you have Valk is very important. You have the best sight line in the game when you're Valking, especially if no one's punishing you and you're just up in the air. You have one of the best sight lines in the game. Damage boosting, very important, especially in Valk. You gain so much value in Valk when you're damage boosting.
Mm-hmm.
And those would be my main things to improve on.
The last thing I'm gonna talk about, and because you reminded me with talking about your damage boost and your Valkyrie, is the ult economy of a team. The best part about having Mercy and Zen is if you are damage boosted, you will do more damage. Thus, you get more ult charge. So damage boost equals more ult. Right? Or ult charge. Understanding when to switch between the two of those. As an example, if you're staggered, don't try to make the fight last longer unless you're in a situation where you need to stall. But when you're just in the middle of the point, go ahead and damage boost. You're upping your Orissa's ult charge. In this situation, that was Orissa, that's the one I'm thinking about. But you're upping whoever you're around's ult charge while also allowing the fight to end quicker. Thus, lowering the amount of ult charge that your enemy gets, raising the amount of ult charge that you get, and thus you are controlling the ult economy. So working that damage boost in is a lot more than just, make a DPS do some more damage. It's charging your ult at an efficient rate. So.
Yep. And a lot of that has to do with just realizing when the fight's over and that sort of thing. Because if it was a winnable fight, healing the Orisa over there was a good decision, but that fight was realistically over. It was just you, the Orisa, and I think you still had Widow up in the back against, I think, their whole entire team, essentially.
Yeah, and especially once the kill feed starts to go half and half on final points, realistically, the fight is over. I'm not saying you can't ever clutch something out, but someone has to clutch it out. It is no longer just a winnable fight. By standard means. So I hope you got something from the video. I hope you learned some of the things that maybe you were a little unfamiliar with, or saw some of the flaws in your own gameplay. Ultimately, I think you have a lot of room to improve, and most of the things that we saw were kind of more nitpicky and just working out the mechanical differences. I think a good way for you to practice would be hopping into the training ground and just warming up your GA jumps, making sure you're good with your rhythms about GA jump close, GA jump mid, GA jump far. Guys, if you want to submit a video and have your VOD reviewed and coached up, go ahead and send it to esportsheadquarters@gmail.com. The next screen up here will show you all the details you need as far as where to post it and yada yada. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And this was ESHQ's Player Academy. And remember, heroes never die.